In 1575, on a mist-covered plain in central Japan, the future arrived in smoke and thunder. For centuries, the samurai had dominated the battlefield with bow, blade, and cavalry charge. Honor, lineage, and personal valor defined warfare. But on one June morning at Nagashino, gunpowder spoke louder than tradition. Thousands of mounted warriors thundered forward, only to be cut down by disciplined volleys of gunfire. It was not the first time firearms had been used in Japan, but it was the moment the old way began to die. This is the story of the Battle of Nagashino, when samurai met firearms, and tradition met extinction. To understand Nagashino, we must first understand the world that created it. 16th century Japan was fractured. This was the Sengoku period, literally the age of warring states. For over a century, rival daimyo, feudal warlords, fought for land, power, and survival. The Ashikaga shogunate had lost control. Central authority was weak. Alliances shifted constantly. Castles rose across the landscape. Armies marched year-round. Betrayal was common. Loyalty was conditional. And into this chaos stepped three men who would shape Japan's destiny: Oda Nobunaga, Tokugawa Ieyasu, and Takeda Katsuyori. At Nagashino, their ambitions would collide. The Takeda clan was legendary. Under Takeda Shingen, one of the greatest generals of the era, the clan built a reputation for devastating cavalry charges. Their mounted samurai were feared across central Japan. Fast, disciplined, ruthless. Shingen's banner read, Furinkazan, swift as the wind, silent as the forest, fierce as fire, immovable as the mountain. His tactics relied on mobility and shock, and for decades they worked. But in 1573, Shingen died. Leadership passed to his son, Takeda Katsuyori. Katsuyori inherited not just power, but expectation. He needed victories to solidify his authority, and he needed to prove he was worthy of the Takeda name. Nagashino would be his test. Oda Nobunaga was different. Where others clung to tradition, he embraced innovation. Where rivals valued ritual, he valued results. He was ruthless, pragmatic, and often brutal. But he understood something many samurai did not. War was changing. In 1543, Portuguese traders arrived in Japan. With them came a weapon that would alter history: the matchlock arquebus. The Japanese quickly reverse-engineered it. Within decades, domestic gunsmiths were producing firearms in large numbers. Most daimyo saw firearms as supplementary weapons. Nobunaga saw their potential. He trained ashigaru, foot soldiers, to use them in organized formations. He drilled them relentlessly, and he envisioned something radical: disciplined infantry firepower overpowering elite cavalry. At Nagashino, he would prove it. The battle began with a siege. Nagashino Castle belonged to Tokugawa Ieyasu, Nobunaga's ally. In 1575, Takeda Katsuyori moved to attack it. Why Nagashino? Because it sat at a strategic crossroads in Mikawa province. Controlling it meant pressure on Tokugawa territory and leverage against Nobunaga. Katsuyori besieged the castle with roughly 15,000 men. Inside were fewer than 500 defenders. They held out under relentless assault: arrows, gunfire, siege tactics, but they refused to surrender. A messenger slipped through enemy lines and reached Tokugawa Ieyasu. Help was coming, and with it, Oda Nobunaga. Nobunaga mobilized quickly. He and Tokugawa Ieyasu marched with an army estimated between 30,000 and 38,000 men. Among them were approximately 3,000 arquebusiers. That number may seem small, but what mattered was not just quantity, it was organization. Nobunaga chose his ground carefully. Instead of attacking the Takeda directly at the castle, he positioned his army near the Rengogawa River. The river and muddy terrain would slow cavalry. He ordered wooden palisades constructed, defensive barriers. Behind these barriers, he placed his gunners. This was not a battlefield of heroic duels. This was a killing zone. At dawn, mist covered the field. Takeda Katsuyori faced a choice. Some of his generals advised caution. They knew Nobunaga was experimenting with firearms. They knew frontal assault could be costly. But Katsuyori believed in the strength of Takeda cavalry. Their charges had broken armies before. They would break this one too. The order was given, drums sounded, cavalry surged forward. The Takeda cavalry charged across the wet plain, hooves churned mud, war cries filled the air. Then, gunfire, not a scattered volley, not individual shots, but organized rotating fire. Nobunaga's gunners fired in ranks. One line discharged, they stepped back to reload. The next line fired, then the third. Continuous gunfire. The sound was deafening. Smoke thickened, horses fell, samurai were thrown from saddles. Armor that had once deflected arrows could not stop bullets at close range. Wave after wave charged, wave after wave fell. The palisades broke momentum. The river slowed advance. The disciplined volleys shattered morale. By midday, the field was littered with bodies. Many of the Takeda clan's most experienced commanders died that day. Veteran generals who had served under Shingen. Elite cavalry leaders. The backbone of the clan's military tradition. Their losses were catastrophic. Takeda Katsuyori retreated. The myth of invincible cavalry was shattered. Nagashino was not just a defeat, it was an extinction event for a style of warfare. Historians debate the scale of innovation at Nagashino. Firearms had been used in Japan before. Volley fire may not have been entirely unprecedented, but what made Nagashino different was integration, terrain selection, defensive construction, massed infantry firepower, strategic planning. Nobunaga did not simply use guns, he built a system around them. This was combined arms warfare, and it worked. After Nagashino, no major daimyo ignored firearms again. Gun production increased dramatically. By the end of the 16th century, Japan had more firearms than many European nations. The samurai did not disappear, but they adapted. The romantic image of mounted archers dominating open fields began to fade. Nagashino weakened the Takeda clan irreparably. Over the next 7 years, Nobunaga tightened pressure. In 1582, the Takeda domain collapsed. Katsuyori died, committing suicide as enemy forces closed in. A dynasty of warriors was gone, and Nobunaga stood closer than ever to unifying Japan. Though he himself would die later that same year in betrayal, his legacy endured. Tokugawa Ieyasu would eventually complete the unification. In 1603, he became shogun. The Tokugawa shogunate would rule for over 250 years, and the age of constant civil war would end. Nagashino symbolizes something larger than a tactical victory. It represents the collision between identity and innovation. The samurai ethos valued personal combat, mounted skill, individual honor. Firearms disrupted that. A peasant with a gun could kill a mounted noble. Training shifted from years of martial discipline to coordinated drill. Status no longer guaranteed survival. Technology leveled the field. This was not unique to Japan. Across the world, gunpowder reshaped warfare. Knights in Europe faced similar obsolescence. Fortresses fell to cannon. Armor grew heavier, then disappeared. The battlefield became industrial long before industry. Accounts suggest thousands of Takeda soldiers died at Nagashino. Exact numbers are debated, but the psychological cost was clear. Imagine surviving such a charge, watching comrades cut down by invisible force, hearing gunfire echo endlessly, the smell of powder, the mud soaked in blood. For the Takeda retainers, this was not just defeat, it was betrayal by reality itself. The world they trusted no longer existed. Today, the Battle of Nagashino is remembered as a turning point. Whether it was truly the first use of rotating volley fire remains debated, but its symbolic power endures. It marked the decline of cavalry dominance in Japan. It accelerated centralization. It demonstrated the power of adaptation. Nobunaga's willingness to abandon tradition in favor of efficiency changed history. And it raises a timeless question. Is loyalty to tradition strength or vulnerability? When the smoke cleared on June 28, 1575, thousands lay dead. The Takeda cavalry, the pride of a generation, had been broken. The samurai did not vanish that day, but something intangible did, the illusion that courage alone could overcome technology. Nagashino reminds us that war is not static. It evolves. And those who refuse to evolve with it risk extinction. The warriors who charged that morning believed in speed, honor, and the legacy of their fathers. They met mud, wood, and gunpowder. And gunpowder won. History remembers heroes, but it is often written by innovators. This has been Wounds of War. Because history does not disappear, it changes form, and those who fail to change with it are left behind in the smoke. If you found this story powerful, if you believe history matters, and if you want more deep dives into the conflicts that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe to our channel. And if this episode helped you understand this forgotten chapter of history, leave a like to support the channel. It truly makes a difference. Let me know in the comments which conflict you want covered next. Take care and see you next time.